Hello and welcome to the RPG Blender, where we give lesser played games and forgotten settings the roll the dice they deserve. I'm your host, Game Master George, and I should be working on editing the early release version of next week's video for our Patreons, but this needs to be addressed. If you have not been aware, the Dark Souls RPG was supposed to be released some months ago, but it was delayed because of severe quality issues. People who did receive copies reported that texts were incorrect, things were just broken everywhere. The game itself had clearly not gone through enough proofreading. So they held back release of the game to the world, made an apology-ish, and now we have finally received the updated PDF version, which should have all of the fixes, except it's still got severe issues. So let's talk about this. The issues start immediately. You'll see here that we have pulled up the starting statistics of 2 of the origins, which are what give you your attributes. Well, if you look down there at the brute, you'll see that they have a dex of 10, which gives a modifier of 0. And then they have an intelligence of 10, which gives a -1. Then looking right over at the fencer, you'll see the exact same thing again. They have a wisdom score of 10 and a charisma score of 10. For their wisdom score, they have a 0, and for their charisma, they have a -1. How did that pass? How did nobody see that? And oh look, these number issues continue. Here we've got the Jack of all trades. It's got a 13 in some of its scores, and that 13 gives a +1, which it should, since this is matching the 5e version of Dungeons and Dragons. And then we look over at the caster, and whoopsie, they've got a 13 in wisdom, which gives them a +2 modifier. Proofreading. And this is literally one of the first things that you are doing when making your character. How did nobody notice that? And of course, the issues do not stop there. Go over to the Dark Souls role-playing game Reddit, and you will see people cataloging issues upon issues that they are seeing with this book. So let's go through some of them. Keeping right on with these origins, let's take a look at position. Position is supposed to be one of the main selling points of this game. It is the unique mechanic that they created in order to set this apart from regular Dungeons and Dragons and to simulate the stamina and mana system of Dark Souls. So, how do we calculate your position pool? Well, your position die for a caster is 1d6 per caster level. Okay, fair enough. Your position at first level is 6 plus your constitution modifier. Then your position at higher levels is 1d6, or 4 if you're choosing not to roll, plus your constitution modifier, plus your caster level after first. So when you hit your second level as a caster, you will gain 1d6 plus your constitution modifier plus 1, right? That's how this works? Well, let's go take a look at the position section of the book. All right, so here we have the details on position, one of the core selling elements of this game. And it says, at first level, a character's base position is equal to your constitution modifier, so far so good, plus the maximum value of their origin's position dice. Yeah, wait, there's more. Plus your current level? Wait a minute. That is what the origin said was the formula for future levels, not for your first level. And if this is correct here, what's the point of saying current level? This is for your first level calculation. It's always going to be 1. So this is clearly a huge typo. Then we go down to every level after first, you gain your current base position plus your constitution modifier. What? That's not what we saw earlier. We were supposed to have to roll in order to get that higher thing. Roll or take the average of 4. If you then look at the example below, it gets even worse. See, when you look at the example, it says when the knight reaches second level, the character's player adds their +3 constitution modifier to their existing base position. Oh, I see. So what they mean is that you actually just take whatever your current base is and only add your constitution modifier 1 more time. Right? Well, if so, they need to learn some math, because let's take a look at what example you've got here. For example, a knight with Constitution 15 plus 2 and a brute origin 1d10 position at first level has a base position pool of 13. 2 plus 10 plus 1. 13. Makes sense. Then we add that plus 3 Constitution modifier. Wait, they have a plus 2 Constitution modifier, not a plus 3 Constitution modifier. Whatever, we're going to go ahead and ignore the fact that they clearly just saw that 13 in the first example and then subtracted the 10, which gave them what they thought was their Constitution modifier. We'll ignore that, but let's just go ahead and add that 3 to that 13, and we get 16, not 17. They couldn't even get the math in their examples correct. Nothing is consistent in how this is being described. Every section where they talk about position is doing it differently. Here, they want you to only add your Constitution modifier. Earlier, you had to roll for it. Which is it? This is currently completely messed up, it looks like. And this is one of the core, no, not one of the core. This is the core mechanic of the game. There's no way that somebody could have been playtesting this and not had to read this page, except if they only used people who already knew how to play the game. And that's the problem with playtesters. They quite often use internal people, or at the minimum, an internal GM who knows how to use this game, and instead of having them read the book, just tells them how everything works. That leads to things like this slipping through the cracks, because somebody who does not know the game did not sit down and read it. Let this be a lesson to anybody out there who wants to design a game. It is not enough for you to get playtesters together and run the game for them. You have to give them your book and see if they can understand how to play it without your involvement. I know it's scary. It was apparently scary to them, but you have to let people who are completely unknowledgeable about your game try to interpret your rules. I honestly, I know that I'm ranting. I know that this can't be entertaining to watch. I know that I'm probably not making much sense, but this is so frustrating. This is it after already having been criticized for being badly edited, badly put together. And this is what they're giving us now? If this is what they've started the new print run based on, then congratulations, you're gonna have a whole new set of books with new issues. Oh, and here we go. How do we actually use your position? You use your position to gain benefits, to your rolls and whatnot. You also spend position to activate certain spells. But oh wait, this whole system breaks because of one little sentence here. Under spending positions, some restrictions. You can only ever spend position on yourself. Fine, that makes sense. You may only spend position once per turn. What? So you mean to tell me that if I am a spellcaster who, for many of my spells, has to spend position, as is indicated right here, some abilities or spells can only be triggered using position by spending the specified amount. They even use that specific word, spending, that I am no longer allowed to use any of these additional uses? What's the point? I think that this must be another oversight. It must mean that you can only use one of these expenditures for position, because if the idea is that anytime you cast a spell using position, you can no longer use any of these other position modifications, that is completely devastating. It makes this whole balance around using your position well completely fly out the window for the caster. Awful. I can't believe that that's never come up. And if that's how it's actually intended, if you are intended to not be able to use any of these effects if you're choosing to cast a spell, why? What possible benefit is there to that? You should be separating out position that is spent to activate abilities or spells. Oh, right. My mistake. If you were to use this on one of your weapon abilities, you would also be unable to use any of these effects. So all of those cool little tricks that you can get from your armor, your weapon, your shield, if they cost position, you can't use it if you're going to use any of these uses. And now, talking about spellcasting, one of the core elements of Dark Souls is that you're supposed to have freedom of what you do. if you want to start out as a warrior and then later gain the ability to spellcast some small buff for your weapon, you are supposed to be able to do that. That has been completely removed from this system. Let's take a look at your classes, and you'll see exactly what I mean. All right, so we've got the Pyromancer. You'll see at first level, they gain the abilities Magic Catalyst and Spellcasting. That's right, if you are not playing a class that gets that class feature, you cannot cast spells. Meanwhile, anybody who wants to can pick up a weapon and be able to use it as long as they just have the minimum strength. Why did you even bother to have the proficiency section then? Look at that. The Sorcerer has proficiencies of all armors and shields as long as prerequisites are met. All weapons as long as prerequisites are met. So then what you're telling me is that someone with the ability to spellcast, if they just sink a few points into their strength, can suddenly be as good at wielding a weapon as any warrior. Well, guess what? That fits with the theme of Dark Souls. If you spend your points into using a weapon, you're able to use it just as good as if somebody well exceeds the minimum level. So why isn't it that way in reverse? Why aren't catalysts just weapons that have a minimum intelligence or faith? Oh, right, they don't have faith. They're going with the D&D stats, whatever. Why don't they have an equivalency there, with warriors being able to sink a few points into their mental statistics in order to be able to use a talisman or a catalyst? All right, let's take a look at some of the weapons then. Maybe they redeem themselves with how they fixed up these weapons. You'll see that here that we have the Katarina armor. One of the problems that came up during the initial wave of the game was that information from the Katarina armor had been copied and pasted and then left in other armors. So let's see if that's still the case, shall we? Just go ahead and do a nice little search for Katarina. Got 1, 2, 3. Good. The Dancer's armor. Oh, so the Dancer's armor has the special effect of whenever wearing the Katarina armor, you suffer -1 to your charisma score, but you gain the advantage on all strength saving throws. Wow. So apparently the Dancer's armor is only effective if you are wearing it under the Katarina armor. And while we're at it, how balanced are these abilities? Right here, we have got a fan favorite. We've got the Armor of the Sun. It costs 1,200 souls, has an AC of 15, requires a strength of 14, and gives you a +1 to your wisdom while you're wearing it. All right, without knowing what to compare it to, we don't really know if that's balanced or not. Well, what do we have here? The Black Knight armor. Black Knight armor costs 950 souls, so that's 350 souls less than the Armor of the Sun. It has AC of 16, which is, if I remember correctly, 1 higher than the Armor of the Sun. It has a strength of 12, which is 2 lower than the Armor of the Sun. And then the special effect is, when wearing the Black Knight's armor, you gain an additional +2 position at the start of every combat, and gain +1 to your Constitution. So the effect is better than the Armor of the Sun. And for the whopping extra price of 350 less souls. 250. Wow, I suck at math, apparently. My math degree should be ashamed. But surely that's just one example of a poorly balanced piece of armor, right? Well, here we have the Exile armor. The Exile armor, you will note, has an AC of 18 and a strength of requirements of 15. So for that one extra strength, you get 3 higher AC. And you get the ability that if no friendly creatures are within 20 feet of you, which is common if you are the only warrior in a party, you get an additional +2 AC. And the price of this armor is 475 souls. How is that considered equivalent? There is no tank, no person that wants to be a frontline fighter that should not take this armor. If you have 15 strength and you don't buy this armor, I don't know what to tell you. You deserve to be hit by the enemies in the game. Well, let's take a look at the weapons. The weapons are where things are supposed to be very interesting, right? Lots of little abilities that you're going to be able to use to make combat more interesting. Let's go ahead and find that one that was released in the preview, the Lothric Knight Straight Sword, I believe it was. Yes, the Lothric Knight Sword. It has the special ability of spend 1 position to push an enemy back 5 feet after a successful attack. So in keeping with the theme of these weapons all being unique and cool, this should be the only weapon that has this ability, right? Oh, look at that! The broadsword! Exact same ability. Alright, you know what? That's not too bad. Only 1 weapon has that ability. 5 have the same ability as the longsword. Spend 1 position to deal +2 damage on a successful attack. The broken straight sword has this ability. The longsword, the claymore, the Astora straight sword, the Irithyll straight sword. Absolutely absurd that we are getting this massive list of items. Another big selling point that we were going to get pages upon pages of items that were going to help us make our characters unique. And how many of these abilities are actually duplicated? How many of these weapons actually have unique effects? Shame. This is a complete shame. So much potential here, and it's wasted. All right, there's one other thing that I want to take a look at right now. When I was hearing about this game, watching their devlogs, something that came up a couple times was the idea of giving us tools to build a Dark Souls-like adventure. Let's see just what those tools are. We get random tables. I like random tables. Random tables are great. You know what's not great? Random tables with only 10 entries. That's how you get duplication. These tables are not useful. You can make a chapel, a palace, a monastery, a sepulcher, a keep, a barrow, a mine, a castle, ruins, capital, and then you have 10 possible names. You're gonna get, at most, 10 locations out of this list. At most! And that's, of course, unless you're okay with lots of duplication, with having the Monastery of Gwyn, and the Barrow of Gwyn, and the Palace of Gwyn. And it's the same throughout this entire thing. 10. And then look, bosses. Oh yeah, we have tools for oh wait, no. They're tools for just picking which of the 10 bosses you want to put at the end of your dungeon. These are not tools for building a game. These are just tools for picking a couple random things from what you've put here. A couple random options from your catalog of choices. This is thoroughly disappointing. I wanted pages of the themes of Dark Souls, of the ideas behind it, ways to create that atmosphere beyond just naming things creepily. Here we have our table meant to assist us with building our NPCs. So that should be giving us personality traits that fit with the game. Little quirks, little small details. Great. That's good. We have, again, a list of 10 names, nicknames, titles. So, again, we can make 10 NPCs from this. We have 10 quirks. We have 10 gifts. We have 10 side quests. Oh, look, number 6, learn the tune to a song now forgotten. That's not telling us anything about making our own NPCs. And before you think that I'm just skipping over the section where they talk about it, I'm not. There's nothing here. There is no substance to this whatsoever that talks about Dark Souls. It even says here, it's not like meeting an NPC in an inn wanting to learn everything about them and then taking them on a journey to some fantastic treasury. No, they then say this is not the case. And do they say why it's not the case? Do they say how you can build that different atmosphere? No. All they say is, nah, that's not how you do it. This is a travesty. This is insulting to anybody who buys this game hoping to learn how to make their own Dark Souls adventure. This does nothing. This does less than nothing. All this does is give you random traits for NPCs and not even enough of them to matter. I am whining like a little child here, but this is their second go around at this. And they still have proofreading errors and insufficient guiding material. What was supposed to be a big selling point of this game. When you get to the campaign section, how much information do you get? You get 1 page. 1 page of information about building your Dark Souls campaign before it's on to more little pieces of artwork. Look, that's what this book is full of. Concept art for the game, for the video game. If you scroll through this book, you'll see places you recognize. And how helpful is that? How much does that actually help you? It gives you nothing. And we should be insulted and outraged about what they're giving us. If this book doesn't go through another series of proofreading and rewrites before it reaches us, look, I don't have hopes about them improving the story bits in here. I don't have any faith that they're going to do anything to improve the narrative elements. But if, when my copy of the collector's edition, a $100 book, arrives, if the dancer armor's description is still of the Katarina armor for its special effect, I will be livid. And I sincerely hope that all of you will be too. That if you purchased this game and you are now on your second version of it and it's still full of these errors, you need to be upset about this. And we need to let Steam-forged games know that this is not acceptable. Anyway, I've rambled on long enough. When my copy eventually comes, I expect I'll have another long video where I go off on another rant about what this book ended up being. But for now, thank you for tuning in to my little need to get this off of my chest. Anyway, thank you again, and remember, there's gaming outside the Forgotten Realms. Just apparently not in Lothric.